Have you ever wondered why Pontius Pilate, a Roman governor with so much power, didn't release Jesus, even though he knew he was innocent? The story of the crucifixion holds deep layers of politics, religion, and power. Today, we're going to dive into the mind of Pilate and understand the reasons behind his fatal decision. Stay with me until the end of this video, and I promise you won't regret it. But before we begin, if you enjoy content that explores biblical truths in depth, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our videos. And of course, activate the notifications to stay up to date with our posts. Now, let's dive into what really happened during that historic trial. To understand why Pilate didn't free Jesus, we first need to understand the political landscape of the time. Pilate was the governor of Judea, a rebellious province of the Roman Empire. His mission was to maintain order and please the emperor, but he found himself in a difficult situation. On one side, the Jewish religious leaders wanted Jesus dead, accusing him of blasphemy and treason. On the other hand, Pilate knew that Jesus posed no real threat to the empire. He knew Jesus was innocent, and yet he hesitated. Why didn't Pilate act immediately? The answer lies in the pressure he was under. The Jewish priests knew how to play the political game. They threatened Pilate by suggesting that if he didn't crucify Jesus, he could be seen as someone who wasn't defending Caesar's interests. And if a rebellion broke out in Judea, it could mean the end of Pilate's career. Pilate was caught between his conscience and his duty as a governor. He tried several times to release Jesus. One of these attempts was the offer to release a prisoner during Passover, a Jewish tradition. He chose Jesus, thinking the people would spare him. But to his surprise, the crowd chose to release Barabbas, a dangerous criminal. Can you imagine the tension in that moment? Pilate looked at the furious crowd, demanding Jesus' death, and knew that if he didn't comply with their wishes, a revolt could break out. He feared losing control over the province, and that led him to make one of the most significant decisions in history, handing Jesus over to be crucified. The relationship between Rome and the Jewish people was tense, and Pilate was right in the middle of that conflict. Rome had a policy of conquest and control, but also gave a certain amount of religious freedom to the provinces under its rule, like Judea. However, the Jews resented being under Roman control, and there was an underlying desire for independence. This political context created an explosive atmosphere, and Pilate knew that any mistake could trigger a rebellion. The religious leaders knew they didn't have the authority to execute Jesus, so they brought the case to Pilate. They shifted the charge from blasphemy to treason against Caesar, putting Pilate in an even more delicate position. After all, if he acquitted Jesus, he could be seen as a traitor to the empire. This political move was a shrewd strategy by the priests, who used the threat of instability to manipulate Pilate. This brings us to an intriguing question. Did Pilate really believe that condemning Jesus would ensure peace in the region? Or was he simply trying to protect his career? The answer might be a bit of both. The truth is that Pilate was more concerned about maintaining his position of power than about justice. Another crucial factor was the religious pressure. The Jewish leaders didn't see Jesus as merely a political problem, but as a threat to their religious authority. Jesus had directly challenged the traditions and practices of the temple. He claimed to be the Son of God, which was unacceptable to the priests. They wanted to eliminate him, not for political reasons, but to protect their position. Pilate, as a Roman governor, didn't fully grasp the complexities of the Jewish religion. To him, Jesus was just another prophet. However, the influence and persistence of the religious leaders caused him to give in. As he realized he was losing control of the situation, Pilate decided to act, but in a way that would allow him to wash his hands, quite literally, of the responsibility. Pilate's hesitation is one of the most dramatic moments in the story of the crucifixion. He knew Jesus didn't deserve to die, but at the same time, his career and life were at stake. When he realized his position as governor was threatened, he chose to sacrifice an innocent man to maintain political peace. Pilate washed his hands, a symbolic gesture representing his attempt to absolve himself of guilt. But history shows us that this act didn't free him from responsibility. In the end, he decided to give the crowd what they wanted: the crucifixion of Jesus. Pilate's decision wasn't just an isolated event, but a crucial point that shaped human history. What he probably didn't know was that by allowing Jesus' crucifixion, he was fulfilling a greater prophecy. From then on, the crucifixion of Christ became a symbol of sacrifice and redemption for millions around the world. If Pilate had freed Jesus, how would the history of Christianity have unfolded? Would Jesus' message have had the same impact? These are deep questions that, though intriguing, lead us to believe that everything happened within a divine plan. Pilate's hesitation and weakness became part of a much larger narrative that transcended the political moment to impact the spiritual destiny of millions. Pilate has gone down in history as someone who couldn't act according to his conscience and who gave in to pressure. His decision had profound and eternal consequences, but it also left us with valuable lessons about courage, responsibility, and leadership. Pilate's story isn't just a political or historical narrative, it's also a spiritual one that teaches us about human nature. How many times have we found ourselves in situations where we know what is right, but we give in to the pressure around us? Pilate knew Jesus was innocent, but he feared the consequences of doing the right thing. This moral dilemma that Pilate faced is still relevant today. How often are we confronted with difficult choices where doing the right thing might mean facing criticism or even losing something valuable? Pilate's life teaches us that there is no true freedom or peace when we act against our conscience. And from a spiritual perspective, the crucifixion of Jesus symbolizes something much greater. It reminds us that even in the midst of injustice and suffering, God has a greater plan to redeem humanity. Pilate was a part of that plan, and although his choice was marked by cowardice, the result was the salvation offered to the world through Christ's sacrifice. The story of Pontius Pilate is a clear example of how the decisions we make today can have lasting consequences. And have you ever faced a situation where you had to choose between what was right and what was easier? Leave your comment below. We want to hear your thoughts on this story that forever marked the history of Christianity. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to turn on notifications so you don't miss our future videos. And of course, I'll leave related videos here in the cards and at the end so you can continue diving into the great stories of the Bible. Until next time, and may God bless you.